morning and welcome to Rising. We've got a great show for you today. It is a really big day, Lindsay, because we have these little things in the bowl.
I didn't even notice.
I don't know what these are, but it's just like a prop.
It's called feng shui.
Yeah,
right?
it makes me happy.
Minimalist design.
Yeah, major changes.
Yeah, we used to keep this is a secret. We used to keep our caffeine, coffee, chocolate in there.
Oh yeah, where are we gonna put those?
Now we got to put them way under.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's talk about what's on your radar.
If we must, we'll get to the news. Now, color me shocked, but the Republican majority in Congress might actually deliver on one of their legislative promises. And I couldn't be happier. The GOP is finally ready to defund NPR and PBS, two media products that receive generous heaps of government funding. In other words, you, the taxpayer, you and I, generously subsidize the journalism and entertainment produced by NPR and PBS, even if you don't need it, even if you don't agree with its editorial slant, even if you don't want it. A rescission vote, which would cancel out $500 million, roughly, in public funding, is expected to take place at long last, the culmination of Republican promises that money should not be confiscated from taxpayers and spent on educational programming that people may not need or want, or on a journalistic product that, even if its defenders have a hard time arguing, is non-biased. And yet, NPR CEO Katherine Maher, the final boss of wokeness, as I call her, is eager to shore up support for the feds continuing to take money out of your pockets and put it into hers. Now, she was on CNN recently making the case that our elected officials should protect her salary. Let's watch.
But I think that the place where we're seeing the most traction is senators who represent communities where there are large rural communities, large tribal communities, in particular in places like Alaska, where there just isn't a lot of other options. Broadband service is not universal, and heck, even cell phone service is not universal. There's a real understanding of the need there, as well as for emergency alerting, in which public media plays an extraordinarily important role.
Oh, please. Are you convinced by that? I'm not. Now, that's her argument. Taxpayers should keep subsidizing NPR because for some Americans, radio is the most convenient way to get the news. Maybe in some rare cases, the only way to get the news. Look, that might be true, but we're talking about a dwindling number of people. The internet is the future, sorry to break it to you. Technological innovation is making it easier and easier to provide fast, cheap internet all over the globe. Consider Starlink, Elon Musk's satellite internet service, which has been used to provide internet to war-torn Ukraine in the midst of that country being invaded by the Russian military. With each passing year, the areas of the world, let alone the areas of the U.S., that are totally disconnected from the internet, it's getting smaller. Trying to maintain government support for an outmoded means of getting information just doesn't make a lot of sense. Not to me. We wouldn't ask the American taxpayers to subsidize fax machines, would we? Again, I have nothing against NPR as a product if people want to pay for it, but it should be their choice, yours and mine, again. The reason some people don't want to pay for it, by the way, is obvious anti-conservative political bias, something CEO Katherine Maher has often denied exists at NPR. Here she was fielding a question about that.
As far as the accusations that we're biased, I would stand up and say, please show me a story that concerns you, because we want to know and we want to bring that conversation back to our newsroom.
That's coming from a woman who once tweeted that ideological diversity, i.e. allowing a conservative or libertarian point of view, every now and then, she said this, it's a dog whistle for racism and anti-feminism. And under her leadership, NPR constantly harped on the Russia collusion story, interviewing Democratic Representative Adam Schiff over 25 times. But when Russiagate failed to uncover evidence of collusion, NPR didn't give that outcome equal coverage at all. Then there was NPR's excuse for not covering the Hunter Biden laptop story. We don't want to waste our time on stories that are not really stories, and we don't want to waste the listeners' and readers' time on stories that are just pure distractions. That was their excuse. NPR should be free, of course, to make its own editorial choices about what it wants to cover. Ignore Hunter Biden. That's fine. That's your right. But I should be free not to pay for it and not to subsidize it. I say thanks, but no thanks, and so do millions of taxpayers like me.
You know, I have a lot of feelings about, and we hashed through this. People should watch our segment from earlier this week debating about PBS.
That was mainly about PBS. What about NPR, though?
I think that they both should stay on air. I think that information is necessary, and I think that you're thinking about NPR on a countrywide level, which I think we all have access to and understand from some of their most popular programs, but on a statewide level, the reporting is really accurate. It's really in the community, hyper local, and really giving people the access that they need. I talked about the radio to you, even though it's hard to kind of fathom that there are people that are still accessing radio as the main point of information. You have to just be aware that our country has different people here that have different experiences, different hardships, and so you don't want to take away access to information. I think that there are several Republicans that understand this. Well, there's 2 points. I think there are Republicans that push back about this bill as a whole because they said they don't fully understand what's in there and what cuts are being done. The government hasn't made that clear. So there's that. But then there's an entire other subset of people, GOP senators, that said that they sent actually a message to Russell Vought telling him, as the budget director, that they want him to explain how some of these funds maybe perhaps will be put. There's 10 of them that signed an open letter and said they want to know how these funds will be put towards educational programs. Right. So obviously they'd see the value in educational programming that may be pulled away in some of these hyper-local places. And so you have to remember that there are still people who understand the long-term effects of pulling educational and informational program from these kids, because obviously they're asking for after school and summer programs to be instituted, which I think, when you pull away one thing, I asked you yesterday, do you think that Trump will replace some of this funding with actually handing out money to parents to go educate their kids or put them in summer schools that are helpful or help them have learning programs? And you said possibly, but I said I don't think that's realistic at all. So the fact that we have Republicans asking about those things is important, because I don't think you should take one thing away and not replace it with something that's equally beneficial if you want Americans to be on an equal playing field in education.
I can just think of 1,000. First of all, it's philosophical, so I don't want to force people to pay for an editorial product they don't agree with. I don't want to pay for this. If people want to pay for it, that's fine. Again, we're not banning the product from existing. We're just saying the compulsory government funding, which comes from you and I, should go away. If you want to pay for it, that's fine. So that's the philosophical dimension of it. The practical dimension of it is I can't be persuaded that subsidizing an outmoded technology is the best way to get information to these people. Don't we have to be aren't progressives forward thinking and technologically interested? If there's really not good cell phone coverage or internet being provided in some of these distant, in the middle of the desert of Nevada or something, why aren't we working on improving our infrastructure so that the internet and cell phone service, which is certainly going to be the thing you get your information from in the future, why aren't we spending that money to build out more infrastructure then so that people have that kind of coverage instead of, again, I use this example in my radar, but it sounds to me like subsidizing the fax machine.
I mean, I would love that. I think that the internet should be invested in a way that people that have less access should now make it extremely accessible. I wasn't aware that there were so many people that had lack of access to internet, laptops, televisions,
right.
or
I
a
don't
cell
believe
phone.
there are so many people.
But it came out when people, and I have several people that I talked to directly for these stories that are school teachers that said you would be surprised by the disparities at home for kids that can't access a cell phone or all these different things. And so it might be easy for you to say, yes, they can learn easily on their parent's cell phone, but if their parent works 2 jobs, and it was during COVID, we saw that kids weren't able to access information. And so it's a real issue that actually needs a real solution. And I wouldn't mind if we do replace, let's say, way information that's subsidized by the government was coming through to children or to adults. But I mind that there's no plan to replace it. I mind that we're just cutting funding for
Elon
PBS
Musk can beam
and
it
NPR.
onto the
So let's
front
do it.
lines of the battlefield
Don't suggest
in
something
Ukraine.
with Doge and then delete a whole entire program but have nothing to replace it with. Elon Musk was there. These are cuts coming under his leadership.
But you disagree that the product is ideological propaganda? What about these?
No, I disagree with that wholeheartedly. I disagree with you. I think that the NPR CEO is right to go on there and defend herself, because NPR has been an institution for decades that has provided real information.
I think if Fox News was asking for Congress to give them a subsidy, people of your ideological bent would not be happy about it. Next up on Rising, President Trump's DOJ is firing a prosecutor who was part of the Jeffrey Epstein case. We will discuss. Stay with us.